we have joining us to unpack what this means and whether Nigeria's problem is simply one of transparency or something much deeper. We're joined by senior public economist, Mr. Paul Alaje. Good morning to you, Mr. Paul. Thank you so much indeed for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you so very much for having me.
All right, glad to have you. Now, let's get into this report, which says Nigeria has failed to meet minimum fiscal transparency standards for the second year running. Can you explain to us what exactly this report is all about? For some people, it might sound quite ambiguous. Can you break it down for us?
Okay, so the fiscal transparency program of the United States, it helps country to see how funds, especially the budgeted money, how they are spent, whether countries are transparent enough to publish what they've done with the monies, and also try to follow the money. Whether or not those monies are utilized for the purpose with which they were budgeted for, and whether or not government published what they claim they will use the money for. This report is not just for Nigeria, it is for different countries around the world. So from time to time, the United States make these recommendations onto country, which includes standardization, complete publishing, and so on and so forth. But for Nigeria, Nigeria has not been able to meet up. I strongly believe that authorities in Nigeria should do something about it if they are not already doing something about it.
All right, now let's get to some of the things that the report said about how we spend money, and particularly on Nigeria's budget process. In fact, the verdict is that the national budget is vague on both government revenue and expenditure, and accused the federal government, among other things, of failing to provide a complete picture of its revenue and expenditures during the period under review. I mean, how can Nigerians hold government accountable for a budget if they cannot see clearly what was approved, what was released, and what was actually spent?
Okay, I think the United States is particularly concerned about some disclosures which they think are not strong enough. For instance, Ministry of Work, about 500 billion, then infrastructural development. They feel that beyond just lumping money together, it's important for authorities to clearly state what they should be doing. And why this is so very important is that they looked at different level and as contained in Nigerian budget. You know, before now, most of us who are economists in Nigeria have argued on some of these things and why we think that standardization should be done regarding the budget so that it makes it quite easy. I think Nigeria, we need to pick this document to use it to hold government accountable. Credibility is very weak. It was scored really poorly. And then specificity is also really very poor. Is the document available in public domain? Yes. The budget process and the budget does not end when they pass the budget. It ends when we see every single thing that we have done about the budget. That is when we can say the budget is complete. But, you know, we cannot totally say that all of the things that are contained in the budget are the things that have been done. And I can break it down for you level by level. We have the level, which of course is the board, the ministry. We also have another level where is a program allocation, and we have specific project program. We also have project location and implementation. The last is where you now bring out project for contractor, cost releases, payments, and physical progress. The challenge many organizations, international, including this agency, have against our budget is that even when we say that budget funds are not released, which we all see that contractors are saying we have not really been paid. In the case where they said it's been paid, we are saying that payment has not been received. In some cases, it's difficult to find physical progress. So to trace it from passage of budget to implementation of what is stated in the budget, it's a different ballgame entirely. They also noted that meanwhile we said we are going to make revenue, there is no clear position as to where some of these and how some of these revenues will be made. I think Nigeria authority will need to sit down with their United States counterpart or this agency to specifically look into the matter and see perhaps how we can be better off than what we are doing right now.
Now, when you say that the government talks about increased revenue, but there's no clear indication as to, how they intend, to increase that revenue. But the fact is that the revenue
this is it. This is what I'm saying. No, this is what I'm saying. You see, oftentimes we celebrate, oh, we have a lot of money. Now, you can say that as an accountant. I am not, of course, I have a PhD in finance. I also have a PhD in economics. So my legs are on both sides. So what accountant is saying, I understand. My first master's degree is accounting and finance. My second master's degree is in economics. So what you are telling me as an accountant, I understand. But as an economist, I will laugh because you might not be saying the complete truth. It might be half truth. What does that mean? Before you were generating, let's say, 300 billion. Right now, you tell me that you are generating 900 billion. Wow, that's an increase. 900% increase. We should clap for you. Only accountants will do. What does economics say? What was exchange rates when you were generating 300 billion? Exchange rate at that time was 400 naira. What is exchange rate today? 1,400. You are losing money. You're actually not making money. You are better off at 400. Because if you are at 400, if your revenue is, if you're at 400 and your exchange rate was 1.2, then you're at par. But today, you are worse off. Your population will suffer more. So why do you want to continue on such enterprise? So that's the challenge. We need to look at different parameters, not to think that things work automatically.
All right. And I mean, on the issue of that revenue, because even for governors, they are now getting higher federal allocations. And I like the way that you're breaking it down. And if we could even do that more so the ordinary Nigerian can understand how this affects him or her. Why is it difficult to follow the money? Because like you said, there should be, a clear indication of, how we're having these increases. Why is it difficult to follow the money from the point it enters the coffers of government to the point where it is spent? Is it a transparency problem? Is it an institutional problem? Or is it simply a political choice of the government to decide what to make public and what not to make public?
Well, I think it's been the method we have followed over the years. It is not necessarily the problem. Like I said, we need to rework our budget transparency system or method. We need to rework it. It is not particularly clear. Leaders or governors or presidents can present budget at any time. You can even have multiple budgets going side by side. We need to outlaw some things. So the reforms we have been promoting, we need to extend the reform to budget cycle. It will really do us a great deal. Now, governors have allocation to governors have increased, but the media cover less of what has increased in in governors' expenditure. So you need to look at the fact that the way they buy Y12, that is iron rod 12 meters, for road construction, it is not the same price today. A tonnage of a iron rod, whether 16, 25, 32, as the case may be, that tonnage has since multiplied. So as your revenue multiplies and your expenditure also multiplies, one thing is certain, one thing is very clear. You are not making as much as you think you are, because it is not about you are collecting the money and you are pocketing it. That's not the case. You are collecting the money and you are looking at your expenses grow before your high. So because your expenses is growing and your revenue is growing, you now ask the question, which one accelerates faster and by how much? That is when you know whether or not you are actually making progress or you are not making progress. So in the case of the governors that you mentioned, for us as economists, we are not too quick to say governors are making more money. If you hear economists say that, they will add a word to it. They will say governors are making more revenue nominally. Nominally, that's at the surface. They are just making it nominally. But when we balance it, we now say that we need to check what the revenue looks like and what the expenditure look like. We look at it in the eye of previous exchange rates, and we look at it in the eye of today's exchange rate. Are they really making more money? So that's where you now accelerate in knowledge beyond just looking at it as an accountant. And I'm not saying that accountants looking at it is wrong. I'm just saying that is what that field requires. That's their own way of looking at cost and looking at revenue. For us, we are not trained to just look at revenue or cost at the surface. We are trained to look at it beyond what is generally seen by many.
Now, let's also look at the fact that, there's been an increase in government spending over the years. And in fact, if we're looking at our budget, it was 21.83 trillion in 2023. And now it's at a record-breaking 68.32 trillion in 2026. And I mean, the feeler from those in power, you hear announcements of huge allocations for roads. I mean, we have the coastal road project, the Sokoto road project, so many projects that have been rolled out by the government in healthcare, even in education and other sectors. But Mr. Paul, the complaint from citizens is that the reality on ground does not match the numbers in the budget. In fact, there are some people who are saying they were better off when our budget was not at this record-breaking amount right now. So, at what point does poor fiscal transparency become more than an accounting problem? Because time and time again, you've mentioned, how the accountants are looking at it. At what point does it become a development problem?
It becomes a major problem because accounting focus is not development. It is the focus of economics. Accounting problem, and I'm not saying this to bring the account. I told you that I have a degree in that. So I'm not saying it to bring the accountant. I'm just saying it that even for some governors,
Mr. Paul. Okay, we'll try to get in touch with Mr. Paul. We seem to have just lost him for a split second so he can conclude his thoughts on what is a very major conversation on fiscal transparency. Of course, the fact that we failed that minimum fiscal transparency requirements for the second consecutive year, the US saying the country has made no significant progress in improving its financial management and opening up its public finances in 2025. In fact, there's been a response from the presidency where they said that transparency, accountability, and effective public financial management remained important priorities of the federal government. But I mean, is this something that the citizens can actually attest to? Is this something that the citizens can actually testify to the fact that they can see these things on ground? And I mean, the point that you have to make public whatever that you're doing in terms of revenue and expenditure. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was a promise from the Minister of Finance to say, look, he's going to make public what they've been able to do with monies realized from the subsidy. But up till now, there's still nothing that we've heard with regards to that. So those are some of the concerns that Nigerians are raising. And perhaps from an accounting point of view, I mean, it may look good, but in terms of development, in terms of what the people are seeing, there might just be a little bit of a disconnect, Marian. All right, well, it appears we do have Mr. Paul back. All right, good to have you. Please carry on.
Yes, sorry, my connection, I had to go and check what was wrong with my connection, but I've been able to fix it now.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, please
So
carry on.
you can ask the question again.
Yes, we were talking about the disparity between what the accountants are saying and how much of an impact it's having on the Nigerian people, because there's that complaint on the street.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the goal for economics is development. Development cannot happen without economic growth. You cannot see economic development. So it is good that we are measuring our performance based on how much we've made. We cannot underestimate those. That is really very important, that we estimate that our revenue has increased. But we also need to balance that with three things. One, as our cost also increased, if our revenue has increased and our cost is not increased. But from what you are saying, our cost has even increased more in terms of what we spent. That's one. And that is why many people feel, government is saying we have met our revenue target. How come, in spite of meeting revenue targets, we have not been able to a large extent met our revenue concerns? We see contractors saying that, they have not been paid and all of those things. And I appreciate the fact that the government is doing everything possible to ensure that those who have not been paid have been paid. But so that we don't lose thoughts of a few things. One, meeting revenue targets is not enough, because we will know whether we have truly met our revenue target if we are able to cover expenditures for the same fiscal year that we have projected. That is on one hand. On the second hand, what is our real revenue? That is, if we make provision for inflation, and most importantly, we make provision for exchange rate, are we really better off? If we are not better off, then what is the point? Thirdly, the cost today, what can it buy? And that is where you now bring people on the street. Government have double and more than double minimum wage from 30,000 to 70,000. The question is, what can 30,000 buy when it was freshly made 30,000, and what can 70,000 buy? As of that time, before it was double, sachet water was 5 naira. I don't know what sachet water is in your area, but I know many people say it's either 1 for 50 or 2 for 50 naira. You can look at the multiplication, and you need to look at what people on the street buy the most, what they consume the most, and what the reality is today. So for me, and to my mind, yes, revenue nominally has increased, but in the real terms, can we really say it is the same? So that said, going back to transparency, I think as authorities, we need to do more in terms of proper publication of spendings, as well as making it available for people who needs to know to have the information right now, this moment today.
And does that include the government making public, for instance, what has been done with some of the monies realized from the fuel subsidy removal? I mean, the Minister of Finance spoke to that a couple of weeks ago, and to say Nigerians have been asking, what have you done with the money?
Okay, so...
Yes, go ahead.
So I hear government say that. Subsidy removal is not that the money is removed and kept somewhere. That money they would have spent from the budget, they've just allocated it elsewhere. Now, it's important for people to know the benefits and concerns around subsidy. So the economy we run now is a bit different from the economy we ran before 2023. The economy we run now says government makes its money, government spend it on government purposes. Before now, when you look at national income, an hypothetical approach here, when you have national income equals to household consumption plus firm investment plus government expenditure. One of the things government was spending on under subsidy is to subsidize both household and firms by providing them with subsidy. Especially firms now have access to FX at fixed rate. Government is saying, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We want the money to remain with us. We want to put our expenditure on infrastructure. We want to improve it by doubling minimum wage and so on and so forth. What does that mean? If you are now going to survive in this economy, you need to figure out how to earn more. Then businesses say, well, I have an idea. What I'm going to do is to increase my prices. So businesses have increased prices. Household owners I'm talking of homeowners, landlord have said, well, we're also going to survive it. How are we going to survive it? We're going to increase our rent from 2 million to 10 million, 3.5 million to 18 million, 4 million naira to 25 million. And I'm speaking of different parts of Nigeria. Even areas where you find it difficult to get your house, 200,000 before, now to about 1.2 million naira today. So everybody's looking for ways to survive the reality of some key reforms and decisions. Yeah, does reform have this kind of impact on the economy? The answer is yes. Only recently, another agency is advising government hands off completely on electricity. Let the people pay. Remember the approach when they say let the people pay, government will look at government expenditure that is supposed to support households so that the impact is less, and firms, if government said no, we are not really concerned about these two anymore. We are now concerned about expenditure, which is the G component of national income. Then firms will find a way to increase prices or ensure that that is done. And part of the money is what goes to household. But when you look at the population, you look at the poverty level, what will the effect of this model be? Poverty in Nigeria is increasing. It's now over 140 million people. I'm not the one that said so. World Bank report said so. So here is the point. We need to find mitigants. We need to find a way to support small businesses in Nigeria and to see how to also support household because of the impact of all of this. Clearly speaking, summarily, we need to do more in terms of bringing transparency around our budget process, so that it will even help government and to reduce corruption. It's going to go a long way to help our government. Two, we also need to find a way to mitigate the impact of economic policies on the people, especially. What are the things we can do? For instance, we need to support Nigerian Railway Corporation more than what we are doing now. When you look at what we are doing for Nigerian Railways and the capital expenditure, which of course was never released last year, and the one for this year, where I don't know how much has been released, but from the money for what we monitor, when you look at where we are in the year, approximately how much should have been released to such agencies, and I will tell you why that agency is important. Cost of transportation has this increased. The alternative people have, which is relatively clean, I'm not saying it's the best option, is that people are able to move from one long mile from one point to another at relatively affordable rate, because movement via railway, it is purely a social good, it's social movement. And I think the Nigerian authority needs to look at this. Europe, transport costs where it is really very high, government introduced buses, give people cars. And when they know the routes are very long, they created subways, they created rail system to support their citizens. Do I think that Nigeria can work on this? Nigeria can achieve this? Yes. From both narrow gauge and standard gauges that we have, we can put our investment in this area. The impact will be minimal. Transportation costs, when people look at what connote larger percentage of their costs, especially in the regions where you have railway already established, a new region, you can start working on this. And this will go beyond federal government, by the way. State government must put their boot on the ground, which will include states with high population. Rivers State or your state, Lagos is already doing something meaningful. FCT, we need to do that. Kano State, I saw that a new rail line, standard gauge, is being built. But the state government, we need to partner. So top 10 states in terms of population, we need to look at this very critically. Right. And this is not the only solution. Energy is part of the things that we think we need to look at.
All right. We're out of time, but I just wish you could give me a swift answer to this particular issue, because you've just described those reforms as key. It's almost as if we can't do without it. And it's something the current administration has reiterated time and time again, to say that the reforms are painful, but they are necessary. If I'm taking an injection from a doctor or a nurse, I can bear the pain in the view that, I'm going to recover. So you are the expert. These reforms, will it or will it not work? If Nigerians decide to bear whatever they are going through now, straight up, will the reforms work or will they not work?
It's difficult to provide yes or no answer, because when you are given medication, it is not just to take the medication and go and sleep. You need to eat while you are taking the medication. You also need to take the medication correctly. So that largely depends on how the reforms are implemented.
All right.
Thank you, and God bless you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paul Alaje, Senior Public Economist, for your thoughts and your time with us on the program this morning.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Well, interesting conversation there.